All right, that's right. We got a lot of new stuff to unveil with this podcast. So excited. Towards the end of the show, we'll talk about it. But first, the Minnesota Vikings, they beat the Detroit Lions at US Bank Stadium. Final score of 24-9. Couple of stuff that I want to talk about in that. Realistic Randy, Mediokr Best Sports Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Where do we even start with this? Number one, last week, I really got into the coaching staff. I thought the coaching staff was crap last week. And I think it's particularly with Mike Zimmer throughout his entire coaching career as far as a head coach with the Minnesota Vikings. He's been terrible as far as clock management concerns and what have you. But two things that I'm going to point out. They had two similar situations last week against the New Orleans Saints at home that I think they did an about-face on, or they rectified to at least improve upon that coaching gaffe, if you will, from last week into this week against the Detroit Lions. Number one, I got into the 4th-and-1 play to Laquan Treadwell against the Saints last week. My thing is Laquan Treadwell, he's gotten better over the last couple of weeks. He certainly has. But as far as what you need from a wide receiver, he still doesn't get consistent separation. And I think that's one of the main things that you need from a receiver. Let this be a lesson to all GMs out there in all scouting departments. And when you're talking about what you need from whether it's offensive lineman or wide receiver, technique. Technique is the number one thing. If you're talking about offensive lineman, how quick is your lateral movement? How good is your footwork? When you're talking about receivers, how's your route running? How's your hands? And when you look at Laquan Treadwell getting drafted in the first round, you say, oh, he's got the upside, Laquantosaurus Rex. He can be a big target, red zone target. Okay, how's his route running? Oh, well, we'll work on that. How's his hands? All right, we'll get better, but you got to understand the upside. The ceiling is really there. Chad Beebe and Algic Robertson are still better receivers than Laquan Treadwell. So going back to last week, 4th-and-1, after pissing the game away in the first half, we had 30 seconds and 2 timeouts. You didn't go for it. You decided to go for it on 4th-and-1 in the second half, your first possession. You threw it to Laquan Treadwell, incomplete pass. Fast forward to this game, the opening possession against the Detroit Lions. Everyone talks about the Latavius Murray touchdown, and I thought initially when he stretched his hand out, I was like, oh, that's a Latavius Murray touchdown. Took them a couple of minutes to figure that out, who the touchdown should go to, Latavius Murray or Kyle Rudolph, after what appeared to be a fumble by Latavius Murray, but it was Latavius Murray. Everyone thinks about the Latavius Murray touchdown. And by the way, speaking of Latavius Murray, that touchdown he had was magnificent. Forget the fact that he stretched his arms out and barely got the touchdown. He was caught dead to rights. He could have been caught dead to rights. I believe it was by Snacks Harrison. He could have had him for a TFL, tackle for a loss. And Latavius Murray did a spin move, left the dude in the dust. I believe it was Snacks Harrison. Left his ass in the dust and reached out and got the touchdown. That was some good stuff. But what ultimately led to that touchdown, many people may not think about this. And I saw the broadcast staff, Chris Spielman, and I don't know who the other. I like Chris Spielman a lot. I think we're in an era now where any broadcaster, any play-by-play color commentary or play-by-play guy, we just want to hate them. Oh, they're terrible. I like Chris Spielman. I see a couple of people that are like, I hate him. I think he's neutral. His brother, he's neutral. His brother he's the GM of the Minnesota Vikings, but he's still neutral. I like Chris Spielman a lot. But 4th-and-3 on that opening possession by the Minnesota Vikings. Chris Spielman and the broadcast staff, they were like, whoa, man, Laquan Treadwell, he's not out there. He's been making plays for you all season. And I said, that's exactly what it should be. Laquan Treadwell should not be on the field on 4th-and-3. Ultimately, I think Chad Beebe caught the ball and converted it to a first down because Laquan Treadwell, I've always said this, not only is he inconsistent as far as getting separation, you're handicapping your offense 10 on 11. So you don't, especially on 4th-and-1 or any 4th down play where you need to convert this ball, you don't need him on the field. Everywhere else, if you want to still trot him out there, I think Algic Robinson or Chad Beebe, they should be the third receiver for the rest of the year. But, this team, they've shown, especially with Rick Spielman, a lot of pride to their high draft round picks. So, going forward from that, he wasn't on the field, and Chad Beebe caught the first down, if I'm not mistaken. That extended the drive further. That's coaching right there. That is coaching 101. I don't care how creative of plays you have. You need to recognize your personnel in certain situations. And Laquan Treadwell does not need to be on the field on 4th down unless you're going to run the ball and it's 4th and inches and you're going to have Laquan Treadwell motion and get to the line of scrimmage and do a last-second block because that's really his best attribute up to this point. He doesn't need to be on the field. That's coaching right there. Number 2, 50 seconds left. I believe 3 timeouts left to end the first half, and they stayed aggressive. Mike Zimmer was aggressive, and it certainly didn't hurt that Marcus Sherrills had a nice return on that punt return and to set them up, midfield, and they got 3 points out of it. Last week against the Saints, they basically just laid down and just said, oh, we'll just go into the second half, and they didn't try with 30 seconds left and 2 timeouts left. So I think those 2 situations, they were kind of similar to last week, and they did the opposite this week, so that's some good stuff right there. As far as the defensive line, 10 sacks, baby. Double-digit sacks. That's crazy. First of all, look, we already talked about how Adam Thielen, he's the best receiver in the league. Harrison Smith, he's the best safety in the league. They're both on the Vikings. We have another player that's the best at his position, and that's Danielle Hunter, damn it. All right, Danielle Hunter had 3.5 sacks on Sunday. 3 tackles for losses. That's crazy. 4 quarterback hits and 1 touchdown on that goofy-ass play. The backwards lateral play that Matthew Stafford had ultimately ended up as a fumble. Danielle Hunter picked it up and returned that for a touchdown. He had an all-around great game, okay? So last year was Everson Griffen. That was the sack daddy, and, of course, that's still his nickname, and rightfully so. Sack daddy, right? Now I think we're in a position now where we're passing the torch to Danielle Hunter as far as our best defensive end. I think Danielle Hunter is the best defensive end in the National Football League. Not just pass rusher, okay? I don't want to say just pass rusher. He made a couple of plays out there, especially in the running game or like a screen pass where he almost went after Matthew Stafford. Then he kept in his place, kept his hip square, and then ran after the running back. I don't know if that was Kerryon Johnson. I forgot who that was. Probably Kerryon Johnson or maybe Theo Riddick. But he's the best defensive end in the league. So the Vikings have best receiver in the league, best safety in the league, best defensive end in the league. And something that shouldn't get over or shouldn't be underappreciated, I've said this into the offseason. I love what the Philadelphia Eagles did last year as far as having a rotation of defensive linemen, quality defensive linemen. So that way your starters get some rest, and that way that you have fresh legs going after quarterback at all times. Something that's going to get overlooked, and you know what, it shouldn't. I noticed this to these 2 dudes out there. Good job. I see y'all out there. Tom Johnson alone had 2.5 out of those 10 sacks. 2.5 sacks, 3 tackles for losses, 4 quarterback hits. Stephen Weatherly also had a sack and 2 TFLs, okay? So we're talking about backup defensive line, and Stephen Weatherly did an amazing job while Everson Griffen was out. And Tom Johnson, usually he's our starter. He's for the last couple of years. Now with Sheldon Richardson there, he can come off the bench. As long as you have fresh legs on the defensive line, quality fresh legs on the defensive line, you're golden. Our secondary's been okay. I don't think it's been anywhere close to 2017, but as long as you have a really good defensive line, that can make up for bad coverage out there. Mackenzie Alexander, he had a sack. I mean, that's the best thing he did all game because he was getting torched out there in the secondary, so that's some good stuff. But as far as passing the torch from Everson Griffen to Danielle Hunter, Everson Griffen was basically like Obi Sack Kenobi, okay? And Danielle Hunter is Luke Sackwalker, all right? What do you guys think about that? You like it? No? I'll be here all night. Thanks a lot. So moving forward from that, I think Danielle Hunter, he's the best defensive end in the league. Something that also helped, Golden Tate being gone. Good Lord, how many big plays has he made over us while he was with the Detroit Lions? So that's some good stuff right there. Dalvin Cook. Someone hacked into my account and said Dalvin Cook shouldn't play at all. That is just an abomination. I would never say anything like that. But my concern with that was Dalvin Cook, if he still has lingering issues with that hamstring, he shouldn't play. But guess what? He went out there. He finished with 10 carries for 89 yards with a 70-yard run. Almost scored the touchdown on that. That was some good stuff. This was the first game that he's been with the Vikings this season where he had good run blocking. Okay, so earlier in the season, the run blocking was terrible. The run blocking is getting really, really good every single game. I think that's something to be said, but also something my concern was, hey, our running game without Dalvin Cook, let the dude be healthy. Let's go into the bye week. He'll miss this game, and then he'll be 100% healthy to take on, goodness, I don't have the schedule in front of me. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But he'll be 100% healthy after the bye. I think they're going against the Chicago Bears, if I'm not mistaken. But he had a really good game. And our running back core, Latavius Murray, Rock Thomas, Mike Boone, even C.J. Ham a couple of times, they've been making plays while Dalvin Cook has been absent. So, hey, good stuff to Dalvin Cook. He did a really good job. I'm not going to be all up in arms on Kirk Cousins and the interception he threw on Sunday. Quite honestly, he has only 5 interceptions on a year through the first 9 games of the season. So the Vikings, they are 5-3-1. So 9 games. And I'm actually surprised he didn't throw more interceptions. Something that I've accepted about Kirk Cousins, and I think it will make every Vikings fan's lives out there a lot easier. He's going to throw the ball up for grabs at times. It's going to drive you nuts. The further you get over that, you'll be better off. Secondly, he's going to fumble the ball, so you need adequate protection on the offensive line. But I'm surprised he didn't throw more, so he threw the interception. I'm not mad about that. But you know what's really interesting? Up 11 points, I believe, in the fourth quarter, midway through the fourth quarter with 9 minutes left, whatever it was. 3rd and 3. Could have ran the ball, just a simple handoff, and instead they do this dumbass pitch play, like a fake one-side, and then pitch it to Dalvin Cook, and then it resulted in a fumble. I'm not even blaming Dalvin Cook on that, because that play shouldn't be called. Pitch plays, backwards laterals should be outlawed in the league. They are so dumb. Either hand the ball off or throw screens. But as far as pitching plays, lateral, whatever, they should be done. There's no reason to do that anymore. You're setting your running back 2 or 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and you're banking on your offensive line to get out in space right away. I think it's dumb. There was no point to do that. You were up 11 points. Just hand the damn ball off. But besides that gaffe by Flip goes back and forth, man. There are some games where I'm like, man, that was really good. Or possession where I'm like, yeah, Flip, good stuff, John DeFilippo. And then there are other games where I'm like, what the hell are you doing? But overall, considering the fact that Stephon Diggs was out, I think it was a really good offensive game plan. Now, as far as, let's see what we got here. As far as the schedule is concerned, so you got the bye week going into next week. Then you got Chicago at Soldier Field. Let me turn this laptop around here a little bit. You got Chicago at Soldier Field on November 18th, followed by the Packers. I think it's very possible that you could win those 2 games. I think the Green Bay Packers, I think you'll win that game. I think the Packers are overrated. I've said that ever since the offseason going into this year. One man, Aaron Rodgers, if the rest of the Vikings team is playing like they could, like we know they potentially could, Aaron Rodgers is not going to beat this team. But if there's a couple of gaffes here and there, we'll have to see. But the Chicago Bears, they're really, really interesting because they're that one team. The Detroit Lions already knew we were going to win that game. I thought we would win by 2. I thought it would be a close game, but they ended up winning by, they won 24-9, so 15 points. Congratulations on that. The Green Bay Packers, I think they're overrated. The Chicago Bears are still a question mark because we don't really know who they are yet. We don't know, and people say, oh, Mitch Trubisky, he's not all that great. I think he's been okay the last couple of weeks. I really think he has. Khalil Mack, he was out on Sunday they played, who did they just play? They just played, the Buffalo Bills. They beat the Buffalo Bills. But as far as Khalil Mack, he was out on Sunday. He's still a hell of a player, even though he's been injured the last couple of weeks. So I'm still wondering, and we're playing at Soldier Field, so that's been a little bit of a hiccup as far as when we go there, we usually find a way to lose or we win in ugly fashion. But I think when it comes to Khalil Mack, I think he could arguably, the first early part of the season, he was a runner, one of the front runners for MVP of the league. Certainly defensive player league, he could still win that. But I think there's still that team that we don't know. I think the Chicago Bears could make it in as a wild card team, but I think this Vikings team, they should be able to beat them. As far as the rest of the schedule is concerned, man, let me see what we got here. The rest of the schedule is concerned, after Chicago, after the Packers, man, you're talking about, you got the Green Bay. You got the New England Patriots coming up after that. You got the Seattle Seahawks. Miami, you should be able to win that game. Detroit, again, you should be able to win. And then you finish the season off against the Chicago Bears. I'm really terrified of the schedule. And I know that we just beat the Detroit Lions. It was great. And finally, the team as a whole, they played as a collective unit at US Bank Stadium for the first time this season. Maybe against the Niners, you could say they did. But as far as this was their best game, collective game of the season at US Bank Stadium. Good job on that. I'm terrified because I expected them to beat the Lions, and I expect them to win the division. I expect the Vikings to still win the division. But my concern is you were in control of the Lions the entire game. You were in control of that entire game from start to finish. When you're talking about going against the Saints, the Rams, the big-time teams, maybe the Carolina Panthers, if you have to face them later on, teams that are good at we're talking about that next level there. We're not talking about trying to squeak into the playoffs. We're talking about if you're going to win a championship, which I still have question marks about, you need to be able to adjust. I still want to see what this team, how this team reacts to other teams when they get punched in the mouth. You need to be able to respond, so we'll see. I think the Chicago Bears will be a really good test, but you should win that game. So, as far as the announcement I have for this podcast, I know I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I said we're going to include Timberwolves talk, and we are going to do that, all right? But you know what? It's crazy, man. This podcast thing can be a little bit erratic, man, because I work a full-time job. I don't get paid for this. I just do this as a hobby. But I have a full-time job, and I'm just so busy. And not that that's an excuse, but I produce my own stuff. Everything you see here, recording, audio, video, actual content, it's all me. I do it all myself. So it's like, trying to figure out what goes where. But now I finally got organized for you guys. You guys deserve that. You deserve my best, and I have not given you my best. I apologize. So, starting this week, damn it, we're going to be on twice a week. Mondays is Vikings talk. Thursdays is Timberwolves talk. And if necessary, more Vikings talk, which I have no doubt that will probably happen every other week at least. So that's what we're going to do. Twice a week now. And if there needs to be a couple emergency podcasts in between, then so be it. But damn it, I'm going to be on twice a week now. Monday's Viking talk and Thursday Timberwolves talk. So that way. And if you have any other suggestions that you'd like to see on this podcast, let me know. Follow the show on YouTube, iTunes, subscribe on there, Facebook at Realistic Randy, or on Twitter at Realistic_Randy. Let me know whatever thoughts or concerns you have. So, we now do this twice a week now. Not just once a week, damn it. Obi Sack Kenobi to Luke Sackwalker and Danielle Hunter. Follow this show, YouTube, iTunes, Facebook at Realistic Randy, at Realistic_Randy on Twitter. We will see you on Thursday.